we today are going to be talking about the political and media stress and the effect on our bodies. So, this is going to be very timely. And I saw someone comment that they are in Central Florida with Hurricane Milton. And I bet we have a lot of people from Florida who tune in. And so I hope you guys are all safe. We have been praying a lot for all of you and kind of for the redirection of this. And um, hopefully, you guys are all safe. Lots of crazy stuff going on in the world, plus in the political season. And I was kind of joking. I said to Dr. Saunders earlier, the body keeps the score, but that is also a book. And we have mentioned that book a few times on these webinars. So, Dr. Saunders, can you share with us a little bit about that? How this type of stress can affect us in ways that we don't even know.
Yeah, in ways that we don't know, because the adrenal stress is very different from what we consider stress. So if I'm worried about something, then I say I'm stressed about it. If I have too much to do and not enough time to do it, I can't finish my work, then I say I'm stressed about something. And that might not even be stressful to your adrenal glands. And that's kind of important because it's adrenal stress that causes the problems with your health. It's adrenal stress that makes your blood sugar go up. And if you've ever heard of the dawn effect, and a lot of people ask about that, they're like, what the heck? Why is it I haven't eaten anything all night long? I got an empty stomach and I wake up in the morning and my blood sugar is higher than it was at night before I went to bed. And so why does that happen? Well, there's a combination of things going on, but one of the things that happens is your adrenal glands release a whole bunch of stress hormone called cortisol in the morning when you first wake up. It's like a whole bunch. Like it goes from almost zero, like 0.04 up to 20. And then over the day, it'll go back down to 0.04 again. And then you release the human growth hormone, and then you start the anabolic metabolism and start getting better. But in the meantime, during the day, you have this high cortisol level. What does that do? It turns on everything. It turns on your blood sugar. It turns on your liver. It helps you digest your food and process everything that's going through it. But in turning all of that on, it also makes you insulin resistant. And so as you're turning on your body and your liver starts making glucose to put out there for energy, to give you energy, you're also insulin resistant. So your glucose starts going up, and it keeps going up because you're insulin resistant. So stress can do that, and stress can do that long term. I've told the story of Julie, who had diabetes that was uncontrollable. Her blood sugars were over 200 no matter what. They never came down to normal. Even on 4 medications and injecting 200 units of insulin a day, she could not get her blood sugar below 200 anytime ever. And then one day, all of a sudden, it became normal. Well, actually low first. And then she got off all her medications and she was normal. She was non-diabetic. And we were like, what the heck? How could that happen in one day? She said she didn't change her diet. She didn't change her exercise. She didn't stop drinking sodas. She didn't do anything different. She didn't start taking any medications. There was nothing changed, she said, in her life. Except later on, we figured out there was one thing that happened. Her daughter moved out of the house. In town, moved out into an apartment just so that they were no longer living together. So the stress, because when they were together, there was a constant battle. And now that they lived in separate apartments, they were best friends. And she would call her mom, "Hi, Mom, how you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. They'd talk for hours. Talk for hours. They never did that when they lived together. So the stress went away. And when the stress went away, the diabetes disappeared completely too. So these kinds of stressors are really important. You may not realize it. She had no clue why her blood sugar was high. We didn't know either, but she didn't know that she was even stressed. And it wasn't until it was because of the blood sugar that we figured out that was a stressful situation. So as you're dealing with life and coming up on all these changes, things that happen, storms that destroy things, and people changing in your life, children move out of the house, or people get divorced, or people die. Just the life changes that happen are stressful, and the life stressors are going to affect your diabetes. They're going to make you more insulin resistant. And remember, that's the problem, insulin resistance. So it's not enough just to say, don't be stressed, because how are you going to not be stressed? Life is stress, and it better be stressed. You have to be stressed. So it's not good enough to just say, try not to be stressed, meditate, or think of something else, or something like that. That's not a practical way to live life. So the way to live life is to be stressed in times of stress, and then de-stress. And the de-stress we often call eustress. There's distress and eustress. And eustress is the good kind of stress, and that's the one that you create. So when the car falls on you and you're crushed, that's very stressful. When you go to the gym and lift weights, that's very non-stressful, because you're creating the stress. When you decide you're going to do something, then making that decision takes the stress out of it. And then making sure you do the 6-10 reset program. We've talked about that a lot, where you don't eat after 6 o'clock p.m. And you allow time for your stomach to get empty, so that you go to bed by 10 p.m. with an empty stomach. And that allows you to become anabolic, where you repair and rebuild, and everything repairs when your stomach is empty. So if you empty the stomach, then the adrenal glands don't put out as much adrenal hormones. You don't get the dawn effect. You don't get the stress effect. It's hard, because when you have high cortisol, you get cravings, especially carbohydrate cravings. People go, I need the taste of sweet. I need bread. I need cereal. And that feeling of needing it. And then when you eat something else, like, I don't know, you can eat a pork chop, and it's not going to fill the need. And you're going to go, I'm still hungry for something. I still need some rice or a potato or something. And that craving for carbohydrates is something that stress brings out, because that's what cortisol does, because it makes you insulin resistant. It makes you want to eat more carbs. So that's a kind of an issue that dealing with is not easy. And we talked about last time about making the sacrifices in your life, having a goal and saying, I'm willing to give up something for this. And sometimes that something is the taste of sweet, or the cravings that you have, or the carbohydrates that you really want, or sleep. What I mean by sacrificing is sacrificing your being awake at night, going to sleep, because a lot of people would rather be up at night and sleep in the morning. But it's actually better for you to sleep at night and wake up early in the morning and start your work, and eat in the morning and don't eat at night. Isn't that weird? I think that's weird. Don't you find that kind of weird, that everything that comes naturally is bad for us? Sweet, everything that tastes sweet, going to bed at night, getting up in the morning, all the things, the natural things. I don't know. It's life.
I was having this discussion with Gordon, my friend, today, and it's like we were talking about our spirit, our soul, and our body, and like how our body includes like our physical, this thing, but it also includes like our natural desires, like to survive basically, and that's like eating and sex and pleasure for some reason, like all these things that are like our flesh, our body just wants to do that stuff, and yet we need like our soul or our mind, will, and emotions are like have to keep that in check and govern it to align our life with our spirit of how we're supposed to be living and what's actually good for our like long-term health. So it's like we have this battle that we're constantly fighting. It's like a daily thing to try to bring our cravings in alignment. And it kind of gets back to that starving, the story of the white wolf and the black wolf, and which one wins the fight. Well, it's the one that gets fed, right? And the other one starves. And so you got to starve the things that are bad for you, or that are, but it's hard. Like it takes discipline and work, and it takes community. It's part of the reason that we encourage people being active in like these webinars or other forms of community. Just super needed, because we often struggle just if we're isolated and alone. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I've talked to some of you, and just the community piece. A lot of people say, I'm so alone on this journey. And I just want to remind you that we do have a Facebook group, and it's the Barton Webinar Facebook group. And you just have to request to join that. That is a really good place for you guys to post things, to encourage each other, share recipes, talk about, the things you love, the things you don't love, your struggles, etc. It's a really good place that we set up for you guys, those of you who are on this specific journey together. And some of you take advantage of that and post a lot of great things in there, but just remember that that is available to you.
Can I share a little something personal too that kind of comes off of what Dr. Saunders was talking about with stress? And so speaking of that story that you shared multiple times about the woman whose daughter was in the home and like caused a lot of stress. Well, so my wife and I have a 17-year-old foster daughter with us right now, Maria, and she's an awesome, beautiful person, but she is really struggling in life, like just to like want to make the right choices. Like she's choosing to isolate herself, and she's choosing to reject like us trying to help her and all these things. And it's really hard. Like, and honestly, it's been a journey, just I've learned a ton, like, and I feel like I understand a little bit more of what God went through when the Israelites were like rescued out of Egypt. And yet while they're going to the promised land, they're like, yeah, I just want to be back in Egypt. The things were better there, even though it's like, oh, like, and it's like, I don't know how else to help. And it's just like, you can only do so much. You can only, you can't make somebody choose what they ultimately want to do. But like, it's been stressful. Like, it's been like, like it's just like mental energy, with all that and just like sadness and emotion. And it's like, wow. So I've been identifying with that quite a bit lately. And yeah, so it's been hard. I had a really good conversation with her yesterday morning, because we kind of hit like she just quit going to school. She's quit her job. She's like, I'm done, and I just shared like the love of God with her. Like I told her, Maria, my prayer for you is that you would just see how much God loves you and wants you to be part of his family. And I'm like, you can reject us from our family, that's fine, but like ultimately God wants you in his family. And that's been our prayer for her. And just like, I think she was listening, but it's hard to know for sure. And it's like, we can do good, but yeah, I share that just because open and honest, that's what I've been going through. And like just being a part like of a community with our team and you guys on this webinar right now, and just to be able to encourage each other. So I wanted to ask a question. If you are on the Zoom, if you can go to the chat, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much community, how full do you feel in your life of having community in your life? Like, are you in a good place? Like, do you have people in your life that are supporting you and are helping you and that you are engaging with? Or like, so 10 would be like, oh, I'm doing great. I have a lot of love and family and community. Or maybe a 1 would be like, I got nobody. I'm lonely. I'm isolated. I'm struggling. You know, maybe 5 is somewhere in between there. But just go ahead and put that number in the chat because I just want to kind of get a gauge for how people are doing in that. Just yeah. Thanks, Don.
And
Go
if your
ahead.
health,
Sure. Yeah.
if you are someone who struggles with your health, it can be isolating. I know like many of you have talked about you're not able to go places. Maybe you're really struggling with your health, and that has created a lot of isolation for you. And so I know that that happens a lot for a lot of you. And the other thing I was going to say, we talk about this a lot too, especially with community. I think the more you put yourself out there, the more you'll develop community as well. Community doesn't always just come to you, which I think a lot of people think happens. You do have to be active and dig in a little bit as well. And that happens even, I'm a Christian, so I go to a church and I hear a lot of people say, no one talked to me and nobody this and that. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? Are you
Right.
talking to people? Are you stepping outside, growing in that way? So it does take some effort on our end too. But I know a lot of times it's not always an option.
Yeah.
That was one of the surprising things that I had working in a nursing home. And I had around 90 patients at any given time. And that's 90 people that I need to see at least once a month. And I take, time with each one of them. And they often want to monopolize my time. They want, no, Dr. Sutter, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. And then they just want to chat about, things. It's not like doing my job of taking care of their health kind of thing. They just wanted to chat. They wanted someone to listen to them. So I was thinking, well, you have 120 people in here who are all in here like 24/7. And, why don't you talk to each other? Why don't they have some kind of program where they can talk to each other? And they wouldn't do it. The residents wouldn't. They needed help. So it's not like everybody can reach out to help everybody else. There's I don't know, people who are needy. They need help, and it's not other people who are needy are not going to be able to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of comments coming in, various numbers here. Some of you are at 10, which is phenomenal. 8, 4, 7, 7, 5, 7, 10, 9, 8, 6. A couple 7s, another 6. Someone says, I feel alone a lot. Someone had a very low number and they said that's by choice. Totally understand that too. And another reminder, Susan says you have to be careful who you let in. 9. People are crazy these days. That's funny. 8, only because it's hard to ask for help in some situations. Let's see. It's not easy when you have a pain score of 6 to 10 to get out and about much. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Health really can affect if you're able to do that. I totally understand that. And that is hard. And that's really the thing that we want to help with our webinars too, is help you guys with some of these problems that you're facing.
Yeah, something that Gordon and I talked about too was just like for me personally, this year I've really we've talked about we're open on where our faith on our sleeves. So like I'm just gonna share like this is me. So the gospel, the good news, like what is that? And it's like the good news is that we don't have to like work our way to please God. Like there's nothing we can do to ever be perfect or perfectly holy. But the good news is like God receives us and accepts us as his children when we just say, like, I need you, God, and I receive all that you have for me because of your son Jesus, who died on the cross for my sins. Like, he paid the price. That is good news. Like, we can live in that understanding of, like, he calls us his children. Like, we have been adopted into his family, and it's like nothing we deserve. And it's like the best deal you could possibly imagine ever. Like, hey, do you want $1 billion and everything you could ever imagine in paradise? Well, I'm offering it to you. All you got to do is say, like, yes, thank you. And, like, here you go. Like, that's good news, because that's really, when you think about it, that's what God is offering us. And I know that people are going to be like, some people will be like, why are you talking about faith? But I'm sorry, that's just who I am. And, if you don't want to hear my heart, then maybe this isn't the right place for you. But, like, the gospel itself, like, having that perspective, like, any problem that you face, any troubles you're going through, to know that your Father in heaven, your creator, loves you and is with you and hurts with you and is there for you. Like, we never have to be alone. Like, we have him. Like, he gave us himself. Like, his spirit is available at all times. And so even if we're isolated and alone, just to know, like, we can just, like, close our eyes, shut out the world, and just, like, pray and talk to God. Like, that is everything. And I think we lose perspective of that. We let the world just get overwhelming in our lives. Like, we see the hurricanes, we see the politics, we see all the divisiveness, all these issues. The media is telling us all these things, and, like, how can we not get stressed, right? Like, that is, and sometimes you just gotta shut it off.
Yeah.
And just listen for the still small voice of the one that made us. So, and I think we just need to be reminded of that sometimes, and remember to not take all the pressure ourselves and feel like, we have to make all the right choices, or else this or that or the other thing. So, yeah, I think I'm preaching to myself this morning. So,
Yay. This is good. This is good stuff.
yeah.
It's important.
Yeah.
Important stuff.
All right. Back to our regularly programmed programming, whatever that's called here. So,
All right. We have lots of comments in here. You know what? I'm going to get to some of these questions. Okay, let me go to the questions. If you have questions, post those in the Q&A. That would be wonderful. Okay, I might dig into, okay, Sandra said she was a 3. Anything else? We have a 10. Amen. Thank you for sharing. I'm just gonna look at some of these quick before I dig into these questions. Okay. Anonymous says, I get a lot of pop-ups on my social media from Dr. Stephen Gundry. He seems to be on the same page about some things diet-wise, for example, gut health, as Dr. Saunders. And I know he has his line of supplements. I'm just curious if you have an opinion about him medically, if you can say here.
Well, I can have an opinion, right? Everybody's got an opinion. Actually, he's from Santa Barbara. He's from here. He's
really?
he's a cardiothoracic surgeon, a CT surgeon, and he had he had some issues, and he dealt with them by going on a essentially a ketogenic diet. And so he wrote a book called The Plant Paradox, and a lot of it has to do with lectins. And what happens is people find something that's a truth, something that's a real thing, and then they take this little truth and they expand it out much too broadly, and that's kind of the problem with all of medicine. When you say there are probably 1% of the population needs a statin drug. And then they expand it out broadly to say, well, everybody should be taking a statin drug. And I had one cardiologist said they should put it in the water. This is so important. Like literally everybody should have it. And so I think with Dr. Gundry's program, there's a lot of truth, and then there's a lot of people that will tolerate that well and do that well. But I just think it's applied too broadly. It's not. The brush strokes are too big. It should be narrowly focused to certain people that react to these things. So, for example, lectins are a very important part of your diet that tell your intestines what's going on, what you're eating, so how to digest it. And so they're signaling molecules. And if you get too much, they are quite toxic. So I'm not saying they're not. And what he's saying is true. I'm not saying that this is a lie or anything. But it has to be looked at in perspective. If you were to take a handful, just one handful of raw red beans and eat them, you could die from the lectin toxicity. It would, like, you could die. So it's not like it doesn't exist. But if you take those same beans and you pressure cook them, or you soak them overnight, and then you cook them, then most of those lectins are gone. And so you have just a few little bits left over that are signaling molecules for your intestines. And if you think of the longest lived people in the world, they eat a lot of beans, and they got a lot of lectins. So yeah, it's an issue for some people, especially like the tomato thing. Yeah, there's one called solanine, which is actually quite toxic, and some people really react to it, but not everybody does. I had one woman who had like terrible arthritis. She couldn't like use her hands or anything. And she went off tomatoes, and she was like, miraculous, like I can do everything I want to do now. And because she was reacting to the solanine in there. So it's something, but it's not applicable to everybody.
All right. Okay, Michelle says, I had been taking chromium picolinate and synochroma. My doctor took me off of all chromium. It has been a few months, and I just saw him. I thought he would tell me to go back on only one source of chromium, but he told me not to take any chromium. Why would that be? He didn't test for it again.
I'll tell you why it would be. It's one of those things, if I don't know about it, it can't be very important. That's the way physicians look at everything. So if it was important, I would know about it. So that's how we deal with ignorance. That's how human beings deal with ignorance. It's not just doctors, it's everyone.
Yeah. Is there any, I mean, do you know of anything that would respond poorly if you were using chromium, or any interactions, I guess?
No interactions. Chromium's a trace mineral. It's very important especially for glucose utilization. But there's other enzymes in the body that require chromium. And as long as you have enough is enough. More than enough is just still more than enough. More is not better, put it that way. So I agree, you don't need a whole bunch of sources of chromium. But if you
I'm always surprised when they tell you don't take this supplement, and then you look at the ingredients and it's like food, but they don't tell you to stop eating the food. And I'm really confused by that. Yeah. All right. Julia said, I believe we are here to experience pleasure on our journey. Here is a human. That includes natural sweets and sex, though too much is our human battle, which only comes from when we are dissatisfied with one or many areas of our life. And we start using the sweet stuff to avoid the pain that lives in our bodies mentally, emotionally, and physically. All right.
Yeah. So we look at it from a biochemical point of view. Everything you said is like that. But biochemically, you're looking for dopamine, right? And so if you overdo it, you say, well, the only way I get dopamine is from sex, so I'm just going to do that all the time. Or sugar gives me dopamine, I'm just going to eat sugar all the time. And so wherever you get your pleasure from, it's part of life. And if you can broaden your horizons then and get your pleasure from, like Joe's talking about, your connection with God can give you pleasure, and then that would be another source. And so that's an important part of life.
Yep. Okay, Sandra says phase 1 states eliminate yogurt, but I've also been eating 2 gram sugar yogurt with 12 grams of protein. Is that going to give me problems to move forward?
No, no, no. The thing about yogurt was all the sweetened yogurts are like this much yogurt and this much jam. So they have a lot of sugar in those yogurts. So the Eliminate yogurt was really more about the sweetened yogurts. But keep in mind that even though it only has 2 grams of carbohydrates, the sweet taste might make you resistant to insulin. So if you had plain yogurt, then and some people eat plain yogurt and put some whatever blueberries and stuff in it and nuts in it, and they like that. Yeah, that would be fine. Just
Right.
count your carbs, just like in phase 1. Go to 20 and you're good.
All right. Don says, I know I can bring triglycerides, 148, down pretty quickly by eliminating sugar. How quickly will insulin 35.1 come down at the same time?
Oh, how quickly it comes down will depend on how long it's been there, but 35 is pretty high. And so I've found that it takes a couple of months, but then, I usually wait a couple of months to test. So I don't test people for insulin on a very regular basis. Usually it would be like 2 or 3 months out. But someone who is 35, yeah, it may take a couple of months to get down that low, get down to normal.
All right. Sienna says, I'm a member of Christ's body and in the church life for many years. I fellowship with the sisters and pray together. That really support me for my soul and spirit. Even I do have health issues with my body. I'm pre-diabetic now, out of metformin since May. My A1C was 6.0 and then 6.2, but I'm still hoping for a better result.
Wait a minute. Okay, so last time we talked about having a plan. So if you have a specific plan and you say, okay, my goal is 5.2, and then you say, okay, so how do I get to 5.2? And then follow a plan. And so we've developed the plan, and that's what the whole Diabetes Solution Kit is about. That's your plan for getting to a hemoglobin A1C at 5.2. So if you started out at 6.0 and you got to 6.2, that's going in the wrong direction. You want to go from 6.0 down to 5.8, and then down to 5.4, and then down to 5.2. So have a plan, have a goal, saying this is where I'm going, and don't just say, I hope I get there sometime. No, I have a goal, I have a plan, I'm working the plan. And if you're saying, if you come to us and you come on this program and you say, okay, I'm working the plan, but it's not working for me, then we have to do some other finagling and find out why not? What else is missing here? We need some more information or something.
All right. Next question, food question from Sue. Does using organic versus non-organic food show a difference in blood sugar outcomes? Or are you suggesting organic because of general health benefits?
General health benefits. Yeah. Just make it a point to eat organic whenever you can. I'm not like all crazy about all the toxins that are in our environment, but you know what? There's a lot of toxins in our environment, and some people are really sensitive to them. So, I see people with Parkinson's disease who've been exposed to organophosphates from pesticides in the plants. And so eating organic food, there is multiple studies have been done, and there is a definite difference. They measured toxins in the urine of people eating organic versus non-organic food, and the people eating organic food had lower toxin levels in their urine. So even though toxicity is a matter of amount, if you're going to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and you're not eating organic, then you can get more than enough. So for people who live on pizza and French fries and hamburgers, and they're not eating any vegetables and fruits, then doesn't matter. But as we start the program and we're putting you into more more vegetables, more fruits and vegetables, then eating organic is going to be more important.
Okay, Roland said my A1C average for 8 months has been 117. Okay, so MGDL 117. Does that mean I'm managing my food diet okay?
So milligrams per deciliter, that's blood sugar. So the average blood sugar from the hemoglobin A1C, they give you an average glucose over the last 3 months-ish of 117. And that's pretty high. That would be equivalent to a hemoglobin A1C of about 5.8 ish. So yeah, that's a pre-diabetic, and 117 is on the high side. And so I'm sorry, what was the question?
I guess it wasn't a question. No, yes, it was. Does that mean I'm managing my food diet okay?
Well, it's non-diabetic technically, but it's not optimal. Optimum, you want to get that down to 100. So you want that number, that average glucose, to be 100 instead of 117. So yeah, keep working on it.
Okay. Let's see. Another question here from Glennie, maybe? Glenna, yeah, okay, maybe. I'm from Chicago. Once I started your program, I stopped taking metformin and Jardiance. I knew both medications were really bad for me because I was always fatigued, tired, no energy at all. My coach recommended that I stop all carbs and sugar until my herbs were delivered, and I did. To my amazement, with all my herbs that were recommended and my not eating carbs, and my sugar last test was 97 before my herbs arrived. Eating on protein and vegetables, my highest number was 104. I'm so excited. I've not had those sugar numbers in years. I no longer eat after 6, and I'm in bed by 10. Thank you, Dr. Saunders.
Wow, good work. That's awesome.
I love it. All right, I'm going to share that with our team. Oh, Rianne said she was thrown off Facebook. They don't like it when you spread the truth. I know. Good for you. All right. Parvin said, I get bloated after the large meal of the day. Any thoughts about that?
Okay. So it depends on the large meal and what that means. So in other words, if you're eating a lot, stretching your stomach changes hormones. Certain hormones are released. And one of the things that happens is your autonomic nervous system has a reflex. When your stomach enlarges, then you need more space in there. And so your diaphragm relaxes and allows more space where your stomach is. And then your pelvic floor relaxes too. And so that allows more space. And then you contract the muscles in your around your intestines. So the abdominal muscles, the obliques, and some of the back muscles to keep everything in. So you expand out up and down and keep everything in. Some people, when they stretch their stomach, they get a reverse reaction. It's a reaction that's it's a reverse reflex. So the normal reflex is to stretch out this way, and they do exactly the opposite. The diaphragm and the pelvic muscles contract and push everything down, and then the belly relaxes and pushes out, and that can be really uncomfortable. And so some people get that bloating, and they used to think it was air. Many years ago, 100 years ago, they did a study on it, and they actually cut people open. This is before MRI scans and CT scans. And so they did exploratory laparotomy. And that means, laparotomy means cutting opening and looking inside and pulling the intestines out and going, where's the bloating? No gas, no bloating, no issues. This is cutting 100 people open. And they found that their bloating was because of this diaphragmatic spasm that pushed everything together and pushed the belly out and caused that bloating. And it wasn't gas at all. It was just a spasm of muscles. And it's an abnormal reflex. The normal reflex is the opposite. And so sometimes there's the physical therapists work really well with that to help you use your parasympathetic nervous system when you're eating instead of the sympathetic response. The sympathetic response will tend to contract and push it out, whereas the parasympathetic will relax and allow more space in there.
Right. Okay, Anonymous says, is kefir similar to yogurt or should it be avoided?
Kefir is very similar to yogurt, and if you get a good kind that has actual probiotics in it, it's actually pretty good for you. The issues that I have with kefir is they put a lot of sugar in it, like yogurt. Whereas if you get just the plain kefir, that's, you could put it in stuff and on stuff, and some people, I was going to say put it on granola, but that's not something you would eat in phase 1 anyway. So I don't know. Some people like to drink it as is. But in the United States, we put sugar in everything, and that's unfortunate.
Susan says, are ingredients in Cinechroma organic? I don't know. Joe, do you know? I'm trying to remember what we did.
I
don't think they're organic.
No, it's not organic.
Okay. Sandra says, is it realistic that you will lose weight in phase 1 and then you'll gain weight after adding carbs in phase 2 and 3?
That's a definite possibility. Yeah. So people often will tell us they don't want to lose weight in phase 1, and then the amount you eat is not part of phase 1. So you could eat more and keep up your weight, or you could lose weight, and then in phase 2, the amount of food generally is not part of it, and so you don't have to eat more and gain it back in phase 2. But because the carbs induce insulin, which tells you to put on fat, that's often the case.
Okay, Anonymous said, I started eating a keto diet, but I noticed a slight body odor, which I never had before. Does this mean my ketones are rising?
That might mean your ketones are rising. Yeah, ketones do have a smell, and people can smell. They often say they have bad breath, like a fruity kind of bad breath, not like a sour kind of bad breath. Like, the stomach has the acid, that's a sour kind. But a keto bad breath is more like a fruity. And then people notice a body odor is different too. And that generally means you're making ketones.
Okay. Rollins said, yesterday I ate a 10-ounce steak with 1 cup of broccoli and 12 to 16 ounces glass. 12 to 16 ounce glass of unsweetened tea. I checked my sugar before the meal. 90 minutes later, I checked my sugar again, and my glucose dropped 42 points to 101. Then my next morning phenomenon, sugar was 39, is it milligrams per deciliter? I think so. I had to quickly eat a little bit of food with carbs to raise my sugar. And then 40 minutes later, my sugar was at 98.
Interesting. So we were talking earlier about the dawn effect. And that's quite interesting that 90 minutes after a meal, your blood glucose had dropped. What that means is that you're probably pretty sensitive to insulin, because when you eat, you make insulin. Even protein will raise insulin, by the way. But since you didn't have any carbohydrates in the meal, then your blood sugar dropped pretty quickly. And then it kept dropping, apparently, because you didn't have any carbs. So your morning blood glucose was what, in the 40s? It's not that you have to eat quickly when you have a blood glucose of 39. If you're dizzy and have a headache or whatever, eating something is okay, but you don't have to add a carbohydrate to raise your blood sugar quickly. But it sounds like since it came up to normal around 101 after eating something with carbs in it, that you probably pretty sensitive to insulin and may just have a pretty high insulin response.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Saunders. I just wanted to comment on the immune support. Is it immune support or immune support plus? I think it's immune support. Yeah. I had bought so many and had to stop my orders until I used what I had. Anyway, I remember you saying when you feel something coming on, take them. I took them on one of my trips. I'm totally sold on it's working. I've been just telling people to get them. Also, my blood sugar is still at 6.9 from 12.5. My doctor told me it doesn't need to go below 7.
No, you want it between 4 and 5. That's where you want it to be. So just do the best you can, and you want your blood sugar to be normal. That's the idea, is to no longer have diabetes. So the doctor's going to assume that you're always going to have diabetes and you're always going to have high blood sugar, and this is always going to be a problem for you. And the idea of the diabetes solution kit is that it is a solution, that you don't have to have diabetes anymore, so that you don't have to keep your blood sugar at 7, by the way, which correlates to 140-ish in America, in the United States. I know they say keeping it around 150, or 7 is good for you, but really, no, get it normal. Get into between 4 and 5. That's where you want to be, 4 point something.
Okay, final question from Gloria. I've been on phase 1 for about 3 to 4 weeks now, exercising every day with a fasting blood glucose still hovering at 98. But in looking at my records 3 weeks ago, it was closer to 110. I fast every 10 days or so for 24 hours and have had 2 72-hour fasts in the past month. I do have the 4 lab tests you recommend ordered from my cardiologist, but haven't had them drawn yet. Should I wait or go soon to see what my numbers are? How long will phase 1 take to get to a 70 to 100 fasting?
Wow, well, you've gone from the 110s to the 98s. That's pretty darn good. So you're doing great, and fasting periodically, that's wonderful. I don't know, I think I would do those tests pretty soon and look at what your insulin and C-peptide and blood sugar are, because that's going to tell you if you have like your C-peptide is 1.0 and your insulin is 5 and your blood glucose is 98, then you're like, okay, then you don't have high levels of insulin, you got normal, and your hemoglobin A1C, 5.2 or whatever. I think that'd be great.
All right. That's it for today. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. This has been a great webinar. We appreciate you. Go bless your patients.
All right.
And he's out.
I think we got the thumbs up for next week, possibly starting this whole new combining the diabetes with the heart health on Wednesdays, and then Thursdays being the all sorts of other health topics that we get into. So that'll be exciting. If you want to get a taste for that, go to homecuresthatwork.com. I'll type it in the chat, www.homecuresthatwork.com. And you can see all the different articles Dr. Saunders has written over the last several years, which is great information. And then we'll get into that. So I'll have the team update bartonwebinar.com to reflect that. And I think that'll be great.
We'll update our Zoom stuff too.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Come back tomorrow.